We are now live. So, yeah, let's kick on then. So, yeah, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May event of the Welsh Azure user group. Thank you, everybody, for joining. As per usual, got another bumper edition of folks joining us tonight to give us some real world examples and some good knowledge on other bits of data space as well. So, looking forward to that. We'll get into it in a second. As usual, this is a community user group. Meet your Welsh Shore user group team. It's frittered down. In fairness, we should have probably frittered this down a little while back. We've obviously myself and Matt have been predominantly running this as it being a virtual event for the last, like I think I was just saying, nearly 4 years now. It's surprising to think it's been going on that long. But as usual, if you're interested in speaking, you've got some ideas, you want to take part, or you want to offer any help or advice or services, please do add us on the socials, look us up, give us drop us a DM or anything like that, and we'll get back to you. That'd be awesome. So yeah, onwards for tonight, what we've got lined up for you. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Rhydian, who is from our sponsors Creditsafe, and got some good real world examples now of cloud governance. So really, just speaking to Rhydian now off before we started, now really excited to kind of get those real world examples. I think as much as there's good knowledge in those technical education type sessions or overview sessions, sometimes real world examples are really worth their weight in gold, because I'm sure Rhydian will have some nuggets of gold that he's going to share with us in a second as well. So looking forward to that one. Shortly following Rhydian, we're going to have Ian joining us, and we are going to get an introduction and an overview to Microsoft Fabric. So again, from my point of view, being an infra person, really excited to know. I know very little, I know bits and pieces, but personally looking forward to that one as well, to kind of cut my teeth on the Fabric world personally. So I hope a few of you folks are going to be sticking around for that talk as well. Timing wise, like I say, I'll be quiet in 5 or 10 minutes or so, just go through the usual preamble. Really be kicking us off in about 10 minutes. Run about a 45 minute talk, and then Ian will take over and give us a talk on Fabric. As per usual, we've got the quiz. So roughly about 8:15, something like that, we will jump into the quiz. So make sure you join us and stick around for that. We've got some really good prizes. I mean, we've got some great support from our sponsors, which I'll go into in a second, but Packet have recently stepped forward. So we've got some really good books. And in fact, I did change the names of those books earlier on, but I've clearly not saved the slide, but they're not the two books listed there. We've got they're actually Multicloud, based on Rhydian's talk. Unfortunately, they had no data books, would you believe, Ian? So I thought, well, that's not good enough. No, I didn't tell you. I chose two Multicloud books. I thought within the space that Rhydian's going to be talking around cloud governance. So what I'll do, I'll get the names of those. I'll update that slide in a second, just so we've got the actual names. I think it's Multicloud Architecture, I think is one of them, and some other. I'll find the names out now and I'll put them up on the screen. But yeah, please do stick around. We've got a couple of ebooks. They are ebooks, so they're downloadable. And of course, we've got our usual Amazon gift cards as well, £25 gift cards. We'll have a couple of them. So all in all, if you stick around to the end and do the quiz, you're in with a good shot generally of winning a prize. So please do stick around for that. Usual kind of housekeeping. I do this every month. Clearly I probably don't need to do it, but it's always nice to just remind everybody that, look, this is a community user group. We're all here to have fun and learn and all that good stuff. Please do be courteous to each other. There are no silly questions. It's the usual thing. The sillier the question, the more most people are probably going to want to know the answer, right? So please, if you do have any question whatsoever, you've got the experts, you've got the people with the experience on this call now. Fire in the chat as a first thing. Please do stay on mute unless you're invited to come off. Just says those funny and awkward little noises every now and again. You've got control of your video and your audio, so please just double check that you're on mute unless you need to be off mute. Like I say, use the chat facility. That'll be available to us throughout both talks. At the end of the event, I'll put a QR code. If you do have 2-3 minutes to leave us a little bit of feedback, that would be most welcomed. And yeah, don't forget to join the quiz after the second session this evening. So most of all, please do be interactive and enjoy the sessions. We're all here to learn and have a little bit of fun at the same time. Right, next up, quick shout out to our sponsors. Again, I do this every month, but honestly, it's without these sponsors, albeit that we're in a virtual world. Some of the quiz prizes, they hopefully they do make a difference to everybody. It's that little bit of additional fun that we can put a little quiz on at the end. Got some actual spot prizes, and it's thanks to these marvelous sponsors that allow us to do that. First one being Servant, been with us from pretty much from day one that we started the Welsh Azure user group. You can see they sponsor a number of other local user groups across the UK, including the Northern Azure user grouping and the Glasgow Azure user group. So go and give those guys a call. I know they've had a recent rebranding with all of their structure and their you'll see that actually, yeah, the logo there is actually different now. So I just need to update that. So just reminding myself. Um, if you don't know the guys, go and look them up on LinkedIn, hook into them. If you are in that kind of, I guess they're a pure play as your partner, Servant are. So if you are in the business of doing anything or needing to do anything Azure, they're a Microsoft partner. They do nothing but Azure. Go and hit them up on LinkedIn if you've got any kind of projects or you need to speak to somebody. Can't recommend them highly enough. Not just as it happens because they sponsor the user group. I actually work with them in my day-to-day daily working life as well. So great team, great bunch of guys. Go and give them a shout if there's anything that you need. There's a little bit more information on why you might want to use them. So not that I'm skipping through it rapidly, but I want to get through to thanking our other sponsors as well. One of which we've got Rhydian joining us as our first speaker. Creditsafe, and I was saying earlier on, it's great to have Creditsafe on as a sponsor of the user group because it's I guess locally HQ'd business down in Cardiff, South Wales. Again, great team of guys working down there. Great business, willing to support user groups like this that kind of fundamentally help us all in and around the area, albeit that we're in virtual, so it's in and around the UK and Europe. Get these little events together and start to learn a bit more. So, huge shout out to Creditsafe as well for putting the hat in, and thanks to Rhydian for setting that up with us as well. So, really do appreciate that. And finally, but by no means least, big shout out to Packet as well. So I mentioned that we've got some ebooks up for grabs. Packet have stepped in, and I said this last month. As well, but I didn't realise they actually started in Birmingham in the UK. I didn't realise that they were a UK based company. So something that you learn. But if you've been into IT for any length of time, then you would have at some point come across a Packet book, no doubt. So they're generally written by lots of skilled experts, MVPs. They'll go out and publish a book on a particular technology area. Up for grabs tonight. It's not those two books; it's two other books. Like I say, I'll get you those titles out when one of the speakers is on, and I'll just update the slide so we know which books they are. But yeah, big shout to Packet. And on that note, I think what I'm going to do is be quiet, and I'm going to hand straight over to Rhydian, and I think we'll make a little bit of an early start, Rhydian, if that's all right with you.
That's fine with me. Let me just share my screen. Can you guys see my screen at the moment there?
Yeah, got you. Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so wanted to do this this chat, this talk to sort of share our experiences in cloud governance at Creditsafe and some of the things we encountered and some of the things that we've built and we are building to aid us with our governance and control of our governance. So John's already shown this slide in the previous screen, so I won't dwell too long on this. It's just a little bit about Creditsafe. We are a global company. We've got 25 offices now, and the number of countries that we're in is growing. So it's a really good place to work. I've been there just over 10 years myself, and a lot of the other guys that I work with have been there for a long time as well, which I think speaks volumes as to how good the company is. But really can't recommend them highly enough. But if there are any people looking for vacancies, then let me know and I can point them in the right direction. So on that, I just wanted to set the agenda that we've got for this presentation tonight. So the intention of this presentation, I don't want it to be a technical deep dive in any one particular area or technology or a collection of technologies. This is more of our story, Creditsafe story, sort of from where we went to where we are now and where we are going in the future. The issues that we faced, And it's not meant to be a technical deep dive, as I've met into Azure Cloud Governance. It's worth mentioning as well, these methods and lessons that we learned apply to any public cloud platform. Some of the parlance and technologies change, of course, between each public cloud, but we are a multi-cloud provider, multi-cloud sort of user, I should say, and these lessons that we found are quite universal across each of them. So I'm just going to start off with talking about how we use Azure, very, very quick intro over that, then talk about what we see cloud governance is, and what industry guidance then is available, and the sort of sources that we use to build our governance frameworks. Then I'm going to start talking about the problems that we faced at Creditsafe due to the governance or lack thereof of governance, and then the solutions that we came up with. How did we apply cloud governance policies and practices to solve the challenges that we had? I'm going to talk a little bit about stakeholder engagement, because I think that's a crucial part to get everyone involved, and then talk about some of the lessons learned that we've got and we are still learning, and then end on talking about, very briefly, about what is next for cloud governance at Creditsafe. So with that, I'll head on to the next slide. So Creditsafe's use of Azure. So as I mentioned, we are multi-cloud. We do use public and private clouds. We do have data center that we operate, our collection of data centers that we operate out of globally. However, we are on a journey to become 100% cloud native. Public cloud native, that is. We are nearing completion on that. We've done a lot of migrations into the public cloud, into Azure, and into other public clouds, but we've recently completed a project migrating our workloads from our office server rooms around the globe and other little data centers around the globe into Azure. We are on a journey to complete the public cloud migration with our main data center migrations into the public cloud later this year and next year. So hopefully within sort of 2 years' time, we'll be 100% cloud native. So at Creditsafe, what do we use Azure for? So we use it for what we call non-customer facing. So non-customer means non-external customers, so the paying customers. Of course, we do have internal customers, which are our Creditsafe staff, but the sort of things we run in Azure are our sales and CRM functions, and HR and employee self-service. We use a lot of obviously end user compute and the Microsoft 365 stack. We're very, very heavy users of that. That's all integrated with Entra ID, of course. We do a lot of our file storage, whether that's with Azure Files or whether that is with SharePoint and OneDrive and those services. We have some print services for some of our offices around the world hosted in Azure. And as I mentioned, we've migrated all our server estates. We had large VMware environments on site for some of our offices, and we migrated those. We used Azure Migrate to migrate those into the Azure clouds. We finished that project last year and finished it off early this year, actually. But that's a journey that we've been on, and we heavily use Azure DevOps as well for our CI/CD and source code management, and all our teams use the boards within Azure DevOps to be able to track their workloads. So what is cloud governance? Okay, so we can find various descriptions of cloud governance, but essentially,
you think because our defense ain't that great, let's go for it.
Shoot out.
And let's stick both with Bellingham and Rice. Which one?
Sorry, again, some noise there. So we can find various descriptions on cloud governance, but essentially it's a set of rules and policies that a company adopts that they can use to govern and manage and operate their services in the cloud. They govern various items such as the security of your deployments and your data, compliance, the management of your data, optimization of cost, operational efficiency, asset management, and performance management. These are all things that are aligned with the well-architected pillars, so that the rules are aligned with well-architected frameworks of, and industry guidance such as CIS benchmarks, cloud vendor guidance, and standards such as ISO, GDPR laws, PCI DSS, HIPAA if you're in the US, and you store that sort of data. But also cloud governance standards can sometimes include some custom governance standards. So our company, we have some custom standards that we want to apply to our governance of the framework. So we add those in to our governance policies to make sure that we are sort of controlling everything and managing everything to the standards that we want to as a company. So the problems faced at Creditsafe. So this may be a familiar tale to many. When Creditsafe adopted the public cloud, people drank the Kool-Aid, right? This is what people do with any new technology. You get technologists that are very enthusiastic, that want to learn, that want to dive in straight away and get their hands dirty. So, as a result, your cloud adoption is rapid, and the pace of innovation at Creditsafe dictated that everyone wanted to get up to speed really, really quick, which in itself is a great thing. And it's consistent with many other organizations. I've got friends and colleagues in other companies that have experienced similar sorts of challenges. But that's all well and good, but that does lead to a number of challenges, which then are harder then to remediate after the event. It's a lot more labor intensive to fix these issues after. Now, best practices, the cloud adoption frameworks, they all say you should prepare accordingly, but in many ways that wasn't how we did it. In many ways, that's not how many other organizations do it. Ideally, you would, but unfortunately, that's not what happened in our case. So that led to insufficient preparation. We didn't have enough cloud skills. There was a couple of us who had some interest in the cloud and spent some time learning about the public cloud and how it works and what it meant. So there was a lack of technical skills available. There were people that knew a bit, but a little knowledge is dangerous in some cases. And as a result of that, those people that did know sufficient information about the public cloud at that point, they were often burdened by other people's requests for help and those sorts of things from the guys that just wanted to start using the cloud. One of the big things that we noticed was the cost model change, the migration from from capital expenditure to operational expenditure. We were used to buying a load of tin for a data center and renting a few racks and some comms lines and paying that on a capex basis and sweating those assets down, aging those assets down. But the public cloud is a bit different, obviously, as we all know. So there was preparation that needs to be done in the finance organizations and also in the technical organizations to understand costs. And that brings us on to the next point, the lack of understanding and management of costs. Whereas when you're on premise, if you've got a server that is not performing that well due to load, the classic old days solution was to give it more memory, give it more CPU, if that was where the bottleneck was. But obviously in the cloud, those sorts of things have implications. So that led to things starting to spiral out of control, and people not understanding that what is exactly chargeable in the cloud and what constitutes a chargeable action rather than something that they were used to on premise. Because to be fair, everyone on premise in the on-premise days, in the private cloud days, that's what they were used to working with and probably were for a number of years. So we didn't follow, as a result, any cloud adoption frameworks and cloud vendor advice. It was all very retrospective. There's a big model in security, the big difference in security model between the public cloud and the private cloud. Obviously, you're using a data center which is dedicated to yourself, and you govern that wholly and completely. But if you're using the public cloud, some of the services, the security model around those is different. The access management, the identity and access management, the access control, that's all different. The encryption standards and services, while the theories may be the same, the services are different. So there was a lack of knowledge in those areas that we sort of fell foul of as well. And the deployment and operation tooling that we had, the methods that we had, were still very manual. We weren't using a lot of automation and continuous deployment, CI/CD, for deploying our workload. So it was very manual, very clunky. And as a result, the tooling that we had were insufficient for the operation and monitoring and protection of data within the cloud. And it's easy to see how some of these tools were sort of on-premise tools, if you like, for physical data center tools that we had that didn't maybe work that well in the cloud. So there were some gaps there that led to, and as a result, we ended up with a lack of guardrails for our deployments in the public cloud. So we ended up, that was I suppose a melting pot of some of the things that this led to. It was all challenges that came from this, things like inefficient and unreliable deployments. We weren't using the well-architected frameworks, the best advice. We weren't taking advantage of high availability constructs. As a result, as I mentioned earlier, we had spiraling costs because costs weren't understood. People were operating the public cloud as they were the private cloud, and the understanding of where those costs are and what constitutes a chargeable action. We had manual deployments to the cloud where everyone was clicking things in the console rather than doing things in code or in templates. So we had no idempotency, we had no consistency or code assets to back those things up. Another disadvantage was tooling sprawl and gaps within our tooling. Some of our tooling from on-prem worked really well, some didn't in the public cloud. And because we had no consistent advice and governance, we had inconsistencies in our security between deployments. We had certain things that were encrypted in a certain way, other things in a different way, other things that weren't even encrypted at all due to the lack of information, and nothing was documented. I mean, if you have things like infrastructure as code assets, if you have pipelines, if you have that, you have a form of documentation instantly to start with. But added to that, there were no documentation created. Each team did their own thing, and there was a lack of documentation and therefore understanding for the people that then came to support those systems later. And each technology team became an island ultimately. So every team did things slightly differently. There was no standardization, no templating, no advice on how we should do things. And DR and business continuity becomes a challenge because we don't have code assets to put infrastructure back. We didn't have a cohesive data protection setup in the public cloud. So as you can see, this is a bit of a nightmare, painting a pretty grim picture of how bad it actually got. And clearly we needed a solution. And as I mentioned earlier, remediating the problems that we had at this point was a lot more labor intensive and a lot more arduous than getting it right from day one. So with that, we started to look obviously at a solution. The solution was obviously needed to sort these issues out and help us make sure that we don't fall into the same traps going forward. So the first thing we did after we identified a need for governance, we established a multidisciplinary team responsible for the development maintenance of the cloud governance standards. That was critical, and having people from security, having people from infrastructure, having people from development, having technology leadership on there, having people from the finance side of things there that could come in and out of those and offer their advice and guidance, that was invaluable. We identified third parties and partners. So the cloud vendors, we used a lot of Microsoft's time on this. We used a lot of other cloud vendors' time on this to give us some sort of legs up, if you like, in understanding how we could establish governance and what sorts of things that we needed to include and how that worked in the public cloud. Off the back of that, we researched the vendor cloud governance and industry bodies. We understood, obviously, the legal requirements. The GDPR thing came into force while we were doing this, so that fed into this as well. We identified the challenges, which I've mentioned on the previous two slides, faced by Creditsafe due to the lack of governance. And then we started to assess the risks around the cost, the security, the operation of our workloads, the reliability and monitoring, all of those things that we mentioned earlier around tooling and around the risks that we identified. So we looked at the governance standards that were available in the industry. So obviously laws like GDPR, the CIS benchmarks fed into it, the well-architected frameworks, the cloud adoption frameworks, blog articles by various cloud platforms. All of these things, we just sort of absorbed it and understood it. And Then we looked at what tooling and services were already available in the cloud platforms, everything from cost management to things like Azure Advisor that would give us insight onto how well our workload is managed and whether there are any challenges around cost, security, reliability. So we that all fed into this. And then off the back of that, we set up a cloud security working group. So the intention of this group is to focus on the cloud security pillar of governance and produce and maintain the standards and the tooling to support those standards for cloud security. And then once we started working with this, we started documenting all of our current and any new governance standards that we developed off the back of this by identifying and working within this group. We engage with the wider technology business community, and with this, the development community, the business community, the platform engineers, the infrastructure engineers, everyone, data people, the lot, and got them involved. And that's a critical part. Can't stress how important engagement is in making sure that governance works, because when you start engaging teams, you really get their enthusiasm. They want to do things right. They want to make things, to deploy things. They don't have to go back and remediate later on. And then it turns into an iteration. Once you've got to that stage, you've got the framework in place, and then we just iterate over that. And the iteration looks a little bit like this within Creditsafe. You know, we identify any new requirements and challenges. Things change all the time. New deployments and cloud services are used. We get different requirements from the business or from customers that we need to implement something. So we assess then the standard suitability, the current governance standard suitability. And then if we need to research any new services and toolings and standards that are available, we do that. And then that feeds into revising our standards. If we find that there's a need and there's a tool that will fix it, or there's a method that will bridge that gap, we revise it and we document that out and communicate it with a wider technology group. And then we start the engagement. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we engage with the wider technology and business teams later on in the presentation. But as you can see, the iteration is critical. It's not a one and done. It's never a one and done. Cloud governance initiatives are never really finished. It's very labor intensive to start with, but what you find is it starts becoming easier once you've got the processes in play and everyone knows how the process works. So how do we apply the cloud governance to solve these problems? We mentioned the process, we've mentioned some of the challenges and how we set up the idea. So the idea is not to limit developers and technical teams. What we want to do is empower people to have the correct knowledge. Okay, so empowering teams makes them more enthusiastic. It keeps them wanting to do better, make their deployments better, and be able to deploy things that do meet the required standards for each of our governance pillars. So we created the cloud governance document for Azure. We do have one for AWS as well, which is very, very similar, but obviously there are differences between the clouds, so we need to make sure that we've got both catered for there. So the cloud governance document, it is exactly that. It's just a document that we maintain. It's aligned with the Azure well-architected framework, so it meets the pillars that we've got in there in the Azure well-architected framework. It talks about how we do cost optimization, how we apply things like reservations to compute savings plans, reservations to databases, how we organize those, how we apply those at what management group level or what subscription level. It talks about those things and it offers guidance on that. It talks about how we organize workloads into subscriptions and resource groups. We generally have a subscription for each environment, and we have a resource group then beneath that containing the workloads for that. So, I mean, every company will do things differently. The main thing here is we decided how we wanted to do it, and it works for us. We then can manage our workloads in a predictable manner. Identity access and management is a critical thing that we have. How do we apply those? The role-based access. We have custom roles that we create in Azure. How we apply those? We apply them at different management group levels depending on what workloads are under those. A crucial part for us for tracking cost, and also the teams responsible, and also the code repositories and pipelines that deploy these resources. We are metadata tags. So tags on resources are critical. There's a number of tags there that we use to help track costs and to help and identify who owns each workload. So again, every company may have their different set of tags, but Creditsafe has a set of tags which this document explains and details and explains why we need it and why things are missing. We then go on to talk about how deployments to Azure are done. So things like how our source control works, what tooling we use, Azure DevOps, what languages that we use to deploy infrastructure assets. How do we do these things? And then we talk about security a bit more. In this, obviously, there is a follow-on security document, which I'll come to in a bit, but we talk about the required data and transit encryption standards that are required. Obviously, the sort of data that we hold is sensitive, and there are strict laws governing the storage and the accessing and transit of that data. So, but not only data requirements, it's the general security configuration of services as well. We then talk about in this document how we protect our data in terms of backup, disaster recovery, business continuity. Data sovereignty is a critical thing for us because we are a global company. There are some laws around what we can store and where, and what we can process and where. So that all comes into this document. We talk a lot about then the encryption key requirements. Then certain things require a customer managed key, for example, whereas other things can be fine with a platform management key. But it covers things like key rotation, encryption, ciphers, all sorts of things that you'd expect around the encryption key management. Login, accounting and alerting is really important. How we do that, what tools we use, how we raise those alerts, how we make sure that we're not logging too much. But the verbosity can be a bit of a killer in terms of cost. While it's handy for troubleshooting, you don't want it on maybe all the time for most workloads. We talk a lot about in the document about the reliability requirements for any workloads that go in. So we talk about when we deploy an infrastructure, we're making sure that the SLAs meet the required SLAs for our product, and taking into consideration things like composite SLAs. Microsoft's got a really good document on how to work out composite SLAs, which we use to feed into this, and obviously any RPO and RTO for a workload that we've got. The tooling for the governance for each of the pillars. So we talk a lot about that, the cost management, the Azure Advisor, the policies, initiatives that we use, and how we do our observability. And then we talk about the standards for network and ingress, egress of traffic and that sort of thing, how we do that, how we get traffic through our environments, that we use a central hub network, if you like, to provide interconnectivity to other clouds and to back to on-premise and to the internet. So that's just how we do it, but every company will be different. The second document that we maintain, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Cloud Security Working Group that we formed as part of our governance infrastructure. We meet regularly on that. And one of the things that this Cloud Security Working Group owns is the Cloud Security Minimum Standard document that we have. So this is exactly as you'd expect. There are some standards there that are absolutely minimum for any sort of deployment. You can see an example in the screenshot at the bottom there of some of the things. This is by no means the full list. This is just some examples. So you can see per Azure service, how should we have it configured? So things like storage account should have the minimum TLS version of 1.2. This harks back to when we first did it as well. But we need to make sure that we are up there. We're maintaining those standards, so everyone could look at this document and understand. Right, these are the requirements for security for this. Making sure that we don't allow SQL databases open to quad zero, that sort of thing. We talk about transparent data encryption and how we store data. So we detailed incident response in this as well. So if we do get a security incident, what is the process? How do we do that? The general security requirements are covered in the cloud governance document that I mentioned on the previous slide. However, this document goes into configuration of the services in particular. So things like storage accounts, VMs, Key Vaults, Azure, SQL DB, Postgres databases, that sort of thing. And all of this is aligned with the CIS benchmark for Azure security. So it's an industry best practice. We have added some custom controls into this, but that was based on what we thought was necessary based on the working group. So some of the tooling then that we use within within Azure. It's probably worth talking about that a little bit to manage our governance. So we use a lot of Azure Policy and Azure Policy Initiative to both act as guardrails, but also a way of measuring how we adhere to the cloud governance standards. So it's really handy to have initiatives that we've got that are aligned to our minimum security standard, so that anything can be either prevented from being deployed or can be flagged up. It doesn't catch all non-compliance. Some things do need other sorts of guardrails, and mention a few more later on that. But certain things are sort of can't be maybe contained within an Azure policy or defined within an Azure policy. They have external dependencies. So we need other methods of handling those. So Azure Defender for Cloud, we use that largely to measure security stance of our Creditsafe estate, the Azure estate. We do have other tooling for security as well, third-party tooling, but specifically talking about the Azure estate. The Azure Advisor, we use that a lot. It's a really handy tool. I mean, I appreciate this is probably telling people to suck eggs, but I just wanted to touch on some of the things that we use. Cost management is absolutely massive for us. We use this tool so much to produce reports and gain visibility and insights into some of our costs and where the costs are going and how they're trending. So we do. That last point here is really interesting. When something like Azure Advisor comes up with a recommendation, we do have to triage each of those recommendations. We don't follow all of them because some of them may be mitigated elsewhere, or there may be too much of a cost for the benefit it gives us, or we may just accept that risk, add it to our risk register, and then not apply that one. Obviously, anything that's in particularly severe, we would mitigate, but you have to use a little bit of common sense around some of these things as well. So our governance documentation states that deployment should be done using infrastructure as code and deployment pipelines, CI/CD pipelines for consistency. So Creditsafe, our preferred infrastructure as code language is Terraform. We do use a bit of Bicep and ARM in places as well, but our go-to language is Terraform. The reason for that, it's multi-cloud. We've got multiple cloud deployments. A lot of the technology teams understand it, and it's a really powerful language for getting things deployed. So we've standardized on Terraform for that. By using Terraform and deploying in pipelines, it opens other possibilities for additional tooling, which I'll go through over the next few slides. But one such example of something that our platform engineering team have done, they've created Terraform modules for deploying cloud resources. So this just means that there's a predefined set of codes that we've got. So for example, if we wanted to create a storage account, there'd be a module to create the storage account. And inbuilt into that module, we have all of the governance practices in there. This is versioned. We can create new versions of it as we extend our governance. But what we actually do is we apply all of the best practices, all of the security governance, all of the other governance controls within the module. When the resource is deployed, we know it's deployed to the standard that we need it to be. So teams don't need to know the exact parameters of a resource if they use a module. They just look at the module, its documentation, pass it in some parameters, and away you go. You know you've got something that's built to the required standard. The danger of if people don't understand that much about the Terraform resources, they may not include all of the parameters, or may include incorrect parameters for the resource, and then that doesn't meet our governance, and then that needs to be remediated later. So as a result of the modules, for most teams, development is a lot quicker. As I mentioned, they conform to the best practice governance. They are versioned, so they're non-breaking. If you reference a version in your code, if someone makes a change and creates a new version of the module, we know that that's not going to break any previous existing deployments. That's just going to affect anything that uses the new versions. So some of the teams, and this is a really important point, we don't mandate Terraform modules should be used. It's intended as a helper. So we do have some teams that have got advanced Terraform knowledge, and they prefer to create their own resources. And we genuinely believe that freedom of choice is healthy. So we don't want to constrain developers. We want to help them. So I think that's a really important thing. You're not trying to tell people what to do, but we want to make sure that deployments meet the guardrails. So one of the really cool things that I think it's a cool thing, maybe others don't, but one of the things that we've incorporated into our deployment pipelines is the open policy agent. Now, this is an open source service. I've got links later on. I've got to this. So what we do, we use open policy agent as a stage in the pipeline that actually compares the deployment or the planned deployment as part of the Terraform plan stage. It actually looks at what's being deployed and then measures that against our cloud minimum security standard for the Azure cloud. So the way we do that, we've got policies that we create, OPA policies, which are just written in Rego, and they're maintained by us and updated by us. And then they then run within the pipeline. So every deployment has a stage that has the OPA scans. And you can see some examples here of a non-compliance. You know, this SQL database that was being deployed in this example was allowing ingress from anywhere, and that's against our minimum standards, against our governance. So we then fail the pipeline so that the team then has to go and remediate that and resubmit it. We supply the output of this OPA stage to the change advisory boards, so all stakeholders can see the security and compliance of the deployment and be confident that it is ready for production. It does meet our standards. But OPA only operates on Terraform deployments. So there are gaps there. If we do anything with ARM or Bicep, we then use the Azure policy initiatives to cover any and block anything that's non-standard that isn't Terraform. But the lion's share of our workloads is Terraform. So you can see it's multiple layers, multiple tools that work together to accomplish the desired results. Another tool that we've got in our pipelines is Chekhov. This looks for best practices and gives some advice and guidance on certain things that are not best practice and shouldn't be done. So we can suppress individual checks, as you can see down here. We've got some checks down here that we've skipped the Chekhov skip. So you can skip individual checks if they aren't pertinent or you deem them as an acceptable risk. So that just accompanies the OPA scans to give us a bit more visibility. A reasonably recent thing that we've integrated into the pipeline, we've started using a product called InfraCost. We were quite early adopters, and we've talked a lot to the guys at InfraCost who are really good. Really recommend having a conversation with those guys. But what it actually does, we integrate this into our pipelines, and it actually does a number of things. The main thing for us, it works out the cost of a deployment, what a deployment will cost you. You know, if you're running a virtual machine of a certain size and a disk of a certain size, we know what it's going to cost based on the pipeline output. The developers know when they see the pipeline output. It also then looks at the previous costs that the previous deployment had, and if there's a big increase in costs, then that can be investigated as to why. If it's accepted, that's fine, but if it's a surprise, then that may not have been an intended consequence. So it comes with a really nice dashboard as well for easy visibility of, you know, where you can optimize things. It gives some advice on certain things that can be optimized for cost as well. So, and we present, again, as part of the change advisory board, we present costs to the all stakeholders so they can see what this deployment is costing and whether it meets the estimates that that team has created for their workload when they designed it. Because when they design some of the new workload to go into the public cloud, a new service, effectively what actually happens is we've got a number of quality gates, and one of those quality gates is how much is this thing going to cost. So infra cost is just used to measure that and to provide some tracking on that. I mentioned earlier that stakeholder engagement is really important, both in the technology organization and the wider business. You know, everyone needs to buy into this. We achieve this using multiple methods. So our platform team we've got a set of really fantastic guys that work in that team. I work really closely with them, and they always impress. And these guys work really closely with the development community. They help them with their deployments. They help them with any questions that they've got. They clarify certain points on any governance or any best practices. We have regular developer forums or brown bag sessions with the technology teams. You know, there can be talks on certain things. There can be questions asked. It's very collaborative, very healthy. As I mentioned earlier, we have our cloud security working group meetings. We have a number of blog articles on our SharePoint site that we maintain that communicate the changes that we're making and why. We have regular cost analysis meetings with technology and business leaderships. Cloud costs are obviously always important to keep track on, but we have regular scrutiny of those so we can really understand which way they're trending. We engage regularly with cloud vendors and the other Creditsafe teams on the best practices, because things do change, right? New services come in, best practice advice does evolve. We do regular show and tell sessions and Q&As, which is very similar to the developer forums as well. Gives everyone a chance to understand and ask questions. Teams channels, again, that's a fairly common channel these days that people can interact and ask any questions they want, and maybe request a session on something that they don't understand that well. And we do regular engagements with the service delivery and change management teams as well. So we do scrutinize the change in the weekly change advisory boards before anything goes into production. So everyone has got full transparency. So everyone understands the costs, the security stance, how this service works, what component it uses, whether it meets the governance standards, and so forth. And then they can ask questions based on that before anything is approved. And it's bi-directional. So these feedback loops are crucial to have. They're crucial to build the governance, but they're also crucial to improve the products that we've got. All of this is, cloud governance is now a native part of the development lifecycle for getting a product to market. So going on, I haven't got that many more slides. I appreciate I've been talking for a while, but lessons learned. These are just some very, very quick sort of lessons that we learned. So cloud governance is cyclical. It's not a one and done. You've got to continually iterate. This, once it's set up, I think it's easier to maintain it once it's there, once you've gone through the setup and establishing those processes. And engagement is vital. Be inclusive to everyone. And we found that this pays so many dividends, including people, and being approachable. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and everyone's opinion should be valued. Doesn't matter what level of seniority, doesn't matter what role they do, it should be listened to. And the technical staff need to clearly understand the requirements for any cloud deployments. That's what our cloud governance standards and our documentation does. And you need multidisciplinary teams. You have to share the knowledge between these multidisciplinary teams as to why a requirement is the way it is. We have people from security, finance, development, data infrastructure, platform engineering, architecture. They're all critical for success. They all work together. It's all part of a big jigsaw. And inclusion breeds success and encourages feedback loops and encourages people to talk and come up with ideas. And really important is that we found we really should be celebrating successes. Any new tooling that goes in, anything that makes someone's life that much easier, anything that makes a product that much more reliable or easier to monitor, or save someone having a call out in the middle of the night. These are good things that should be sort of, someone deserves a pat on the back for. So it's important to acknowledge that the continual measuring and reporting is critical for understanding the current stance. You need to know what you don't know, really, effectively. So you need to make sure that you've got a good understanding of where you're at the moment. And some of the tools I've mentioned do talk to that, and do allow you to measure standards, things like Azure policy compliance, the OPA scans, the infra cost, the checkoff scans. There are other tools that we use as well, but I didn't want to make this even longer than it actually is tonight. So what's next? AI is obviously a huge thing in the industry at the moment. So we are looking at the use of AI services to improve the productivity. We already use a lot of GitHub Copilot in our environment. We're looking at integrating more AI into our pipelines. We would probably look at replacing the open policy agent with AI checks. What we're finding with the open policy agent, while it's a really good tool, it's a really powerful tool to have, and we couldn't do without what it does anymore. We definitely need a quicker way to get these policies to market. Maintenance of OPA policies, the Rego policies for each controller is quite labor intensive. It's well worth having, but if we had AI checks that could look at certain things, look at the CIS benchmarks, look at other advice that we've got, and guardrails that we need, and governance controls that we've got, if you could do that automatically without us having to invest the time to maintain these policies, that's definitely something that we were looking at integrating this year. And other productivity enhancements AI can bring. So, scanning as developers develop, if you like, or as someone writes a piece of code, or brings up all of the really cool features that some of these AI enabled IDEs have got. Like GitHub Copilot is fantastic. Developers really like that. But there are other things in the IDEs that we can include, other scans, other things that happen before they even commit that code, before they even deploy that code. So we're looking at opportunities there. We will continue to iterate. This is a theme iteration. It's a cyclical process that doesn't change. We're always looking out for new and better tooling as services and requirements evolve. We learn a lot from blogs, from industry commentaries, from technical people such as on these calls, and then keep sharing the knowledge and finding the best practices, because that then opens up other doors that we didn't know were there before we started on this initiative. So it's almost a self-perpetuating thing if we do that. And the last slide is just some links to some of the tooling that we use. I mentioned the Open Policy Agent, Chekhov, that we've integrated. InfraCost, it's a really, really nice feature. And then some links to CIS benchmarks and Terraform. And that is all I've got on the slide. So thank you for your time.
Rhydian, that was amazing. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you kind of taking us through that. There's, I mean, it's one of those areas, right, that is it's never an easy answer, and I'm sure you've hit it. Where there's far more than just the one way of doing things. I mean, one quick question for me: how did you manage that when you kind of had a number of ways you could have implemented the same thing? Did you hit too many of those kind of scenarios, and how did you kind of overcome them?
Yeah, and I think that's a very good question, because the governance groups that we've got, there's participation from platform, there's participation, as I mentioned, from other members of the Creditsafe technology teams and business teams, and it's largely a consensus. We're not afraid to try something and fail, right? If we try something and we find it's not the best way of doing it, okay, at least we know that we've learned something from it. So every experience is positive. So there's certain things that lend themselves, certain things are obvious. You talk to Microsoft and they'd say, yeah, use this tool for this. This is how you do it. Here's some documentation. It's well supported, but it's just what works for us. We look at it as a committee, if you like, as a group, and take everyone's sort of perspectives on board. But it's going back to that whole cycle that I mentioned, whereby we've got, we evaluate the standards that we've got and any new requirements, and that then leads you into the tooling almost once you start researching that. But in order to look at what we've got, we do tend to sort of scrutinize those sorts of things as a group, really, and have a discussion. It's all about, as I mentioned, the engagement and the iterations of that engagement.
It sounds like you've got it sounds like there's that culture within the business that you're getting right, where, like you say, engaging with everybody, nobody's got a stupid question, listening to everybody and making everybody feel that they're part of that process, right? I guess that's probably what overarches a lot of that decision making. So, like you say, look, let's choose this route for now. If it doesn't work, we can always change it later, I guess is
exactly. And things change, right? You've got the whole AI opportunities that are now there. When we were doing OPA, we looked at doing OPA for a while ago, and the AI, maybe our understanding of it and the AI capability weren't to where they are now. But I think as time progresses, there's a lot more capabilities that are being deployed that are coming to market. There's a lot more experiences that people online have shared with a particular tooling. And, we've learned OPA's great. The policies are great, but it's very labor intensive. And the Rego language is a little bit finicky. It's not as intuitive as something like Python would be, or Terraform. So what we are finding is, well, that's great. We need that functionality, but is there a better tool to do that? And we think an AI-based tool could be the answer. So yeah, it's continuously revising things, because it's never one and done. And you're absolutely right. It is a culture. You bring people along for the journey, and you get so much engagement. You get so much enthusiasm, because let's be honest, we're dealing with a lot of very, very intelligent, highly capable people in the organization who have all got their own ways of thinking. And I think that's really healthy, having that diversity.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just managing that in the right way and making sure, like you say, as a collective, you're able to kind of have that open debate about things, maybe.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm just scanning through the chat here, and there are a few points. I mean, I mean, we say it tongue in cheek, but there seems to be this whole kind of industry phrase of avoid multi-cloud. I've heard it so many
Yeah,
times and in so many places, but equally, I've worked with so many companies, and you are yourself a multi-cloud company. So, as much as how are things do you find, in terms of that complexity managing multi-cloud? Is it? I mean, well, how do you find it in terms of complexity wise now? Now you've got your governance, your guidelines, your guide rails in
yeah,
place. You've got some of that policy in place. You mentioned that it's a case of keeping up to date with that.
absolutely.
How would you rate that in terms of your day-to-day job with keeping up to date with the latest and greatest tooling and things like that? Is it much of an overhead? I mean, how have you
It
found
can
that
be.
bit?
Yeah, and that's a very good point. It can be because the, everyone's day is really busy, right? We're really busy teams that we tend to sort of not have that much time in the day, but you have to find those times. You have to sort of block out your calendar, put yourself on busy on Teams to say, hey, I'm not available. I'm doing some development. The company does encourage us to have a few hours a week to do that development, to look at those blogs, to read the articles, to try and break things. We've got sandbox subscriptions and accounts in AWS, for example, that allow developers to go in and play with things and break things that are maybe a bit more relaxed. We don't mandate that infrastructure as code is needed on those environments. Sometimes the best way to learn something is to point and click until you understand what the GUI looks like, and then you know what the inputs are, and then you can translate that into code. Some people work better like that. The complexity is an interesting one. I think, though, we've got to the size of different teams whereby certain teams work in Azure, certain teams work in AWS. And obviously, I straddle both camps. I've got a foot in both camps. But I do think that, teams they generally do learn really well from each other, and the knowledge sharing sessions that we do does help everyone sort of improve their skill set. So I think that if we all had to do every single cloud, we couldn't do it. It's back to the point we were talking earlier about the generalization. I don't think it's possible to be at the level that we need to be and know absolutely everything. So you generally find teams or people, individuals have knowledge on certain areas more than others, and another area, another team would have that, or another person would have that. So they are distinct. Certain teams work with just the Azure stack, certain teams work with the AWS stack, and some of us, like Platform, myself, where we span across the both. So yeah.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, no silver bullets. You've just got to put the work in essentially, and
Yeah, indeed.
as a business, you've got to realize that that's what I'm hearing from you. You've got to put that effort in to make sure, it doesn't come just by doing your day job. You've got to put set time
Totally.
aside and actually deliberately work towards these things, is what I'm hearing there, Rhydian. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
absolutely. You've got
Yeah.
to put the effort in, but it is rewarding once you do that. And it can be labor intensive. It can be takes a lot of time to start with. But once you've started on that journey, it can only gets better. Once you've got the engagement, and that's what I mentioned. The engagement is critical. The stakeholder engagement, the technology team engagement, get their ideas. And I've found that since we started doing this, the enthusiasm has been great. You tend to,
Yeah.
it almost like if you take, for example, cost optimization, it almost gamifies cost optimization. Go, how can we make this cheaper? How can we make this more efficient? Can we make the code more efficient? And then we can reduce the size of the compute, for example. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's a really good way of looking at it. I think there's one final question, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody's mentioned in the chat here about have you ever considered using Pulumi? Did that cross your path when you were looking at that
We
infrastructure as code piece, or did you just naturally gravitate towards Terraform to begin?
Yeah, we naturally gravitated towards Terraform because we started playing with infrastructure as code a while ago, even though we weren't, it wasn't as comprehensive. A few of us started playing with it, and it's multi-cloud, et cetera, et cetera. But no, we haven't really. I think we've gone far enough down the road with Terraform that to change that now would be a lot more work, and I don't think we have work to do that. I mean, we're always looking at, that may be something that we look at in future, but I think the teams are very well skilled, highly skilled in the Terraform side of things. A few of them do ARM, a few of them do Bicep, and they like that, and that's great. That works for them. Freedom of choice is good, but if you have too many tools to do too many things or the same thing, it can sometimes be more of a blessing, a curse than a blessing, really. But I mean,
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
something that we're open to looking at, but we we started on the Terraform journey many moons ago, and it did everything that we needed to do. It does things it did things on premise, it did things on the networking stack. We can do all sorts of things with that. So we haven't
sure.
looked at it.
I think that's a fair enough answer, really. I think I've heard lots of good things about Plumi as well. I've certainly seen a lot of companies using it, but I think it's one of those things. It's sometimes you start one way and you don't necessarily have a compelling reason to switch your view, and what you're doing is good enough for where you need to be. Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I think if one day we find that we are hitting limitations with Terraform, then we would certainly, that would force our hand to look at something else. But for what we have and the way we do things, it works well. But that's not to say we wouldn't look at it, because it's a good service, good product. So it's something that we can definitely look at in future, and we would certainly be open to, even if we just research it and don't decide not to go with it. At least we've got something out of that environment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dee's mentioned, AI security will become a huge field very soon as well. So I think we're all waiting for that to land now, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Lots of things AI based. I'm sure you're looking out for as much as everybody else is at the moment. But
and I've found the AI, the co-pilots for GitHub Copilot, I use every day, and I wouldn't want to work without it. I think there was an industry something saying that not having a co-pilot or an AI co-pilot available for a developer would mean they wouldn't take the job in some cases, in some like a high percentage, and I can see why. It's a game changer in terms of productivity.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can see that 100%. Any other questions then? I think up to now. I did come off mute if you want. You use Copilot a lot. Yeah, TDD and new meaning, tab-driven deployment development. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. I suppose that is a new way of working. That's going to certainly be a new way of working for a lot of developers coming soon. Makes you think how software development languages are going to start to evolve now, right?
Well, I think that's an interesting point, because we had this conversation. Writing code, learning to write the code. If you've got a co-pilot that can help you with that, the learning curve is much quicker. But what it turns developers into, not full time, of course, but is more prompt engineers, right? So it's about thinking about having your code repository with your prompts stored in it as well, not just the code assets. So you can see how it was built and learn from it, having a library of prompts that work and give you the right results. Because I think prompt engineering is a skill in itself. So that's an important thing.
Yeah, no, won't disagree with that. But no, I think that's it. Now we're at the prompt engineering rag. Yeah, you're right, Alan. Well, look, Rhydian, really appreciate that talk. Really, certainly going to go back through your slides there and pick out some of those golden nuggets. There are a few good points in there I think are worthwhile. Lots of businesses taking on board, right? So, really appreciate that, Rhydian. Thank you very much for all your time and taking us through it. So, if everybody wants to use the react button, I keep calling them emoticons, or come off mute and show your appreciation. There we go. Dee's got it. Ian's got it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the chance to talk. No. And sorry if it went on too long.
No, not at all. That was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. Thanks a lot, Rhydian. We'll and obviously feel free to stick around now, but
sure,
we'll catch up soon.
Will do. Thanks, John.
And on that note, I think we will hand straight over to Mr. Pike. Ian, how are you there, sir?
Not too bad, sir. So just getting set up. So, fingers crossed the laptop works all right, and sharing.
Absolutely. I'll leave it over to you for some fabric goodness then.
Yeah. Oh, I'll remember to share my sound. I know you can do that after the fact now, which is afterwards. I have got a little bit. Yeah. So I'll do a quick intro. So Ian Pike, also work at Microsoft. What we term as a senior technical specialist. I was a cloud solution architect last year, so similar that. I'm just a little bit closer to the pre-sales role. I try not to sell stuff because I'm technical, but do get dragged into that. I've been at Microsoft about 7 years, mostly work with our public sector customers, so DWP, some of the larger ones, IPO, which are obviously based in Wales at the moment. So that's the intellectual property office. So yeah, but I've got quite a bit. I'm based up in Manchester. I run a data platform user group up there, a few other guys. I was originally from Wales, so I am from Porthcawl originally. So, but my accent only will come out after a few drinks. But you know, if you want to link into me, please do so. So what I'm going to do is give you a quick overview of Fabric. So this is the stuff that I've been doing, you know, with a lot of the customers. So Fabric was released last May time, so yeah, about a year ago into preview, then went general availability in November. But yeah, just give you a bit of overview what I'm hearing from customers and try and give you a bit of an insight of what it is. Obviously, you know, ping in the chat. I can see the chat on a different screen, so if you're using it already, you know, just say whether you've you know, got a good idea or anything. It'd be quite good to understand the sort of crowd of people, whether this is brand new to you or you've actually, you know, used it. I need Power BI because most of this, as you'll come to in a bit, you'll realize that this is just an extension of Power BI. So you know, we'll try not to, that's a bit of a spoiler to where we're getting to. So what have I been doing? So obviously Fabric, when it was announced, caused quite a bit of, you know, sort of excitement with some of our customers and things like that, just trying to work out you know, what it was and how it worked. So, you know, a lot of the things here I'm just trying to say is, well, what customers been saying to me. So, you know, what is it? And I'm still doing a lot of that at the moment, so don't feel that you've missed the thing. You know, a lot of customers are still trying to work out what it is. And if you've seen Build recently, I think we tried to make it, some of us were joking, we'll drink a shot every time they mention the word Copilot. And a lot of the time when I speak to customers now, they ask about a Copilot. The first thing I ask is which Copilot of the 400 that you're probably aware that we've now got inside Microsoft, you know, what that is. Cost models, how, you know, what Fabric means and how does it differentiate against other, you know, sort of analytical platforms. You know, how does it make it easier to start? You know, these trial capacities that we're giving away, and there's this big thing about happy paths, which I'll come to explain what that means. Some of the challenges, again, just loads of conversations about it. So you know, there's a lot of people still, you know, going through it, and you know, as a lot of my time is spent, you know, trying to get people up to speed on, you know, what is Fabric, how does it sort of get in there. And it's changing fast. You know, you talk about the cloud, it's only accelerating. You know, when I first started on SQL Server over 20 years ago, you'd wait 8 years before there was an update and you got to understand what was going on. Fabric, weekly releases and things like that being updated. So, you know, I'm inside Microsoft. I'm saying I struggle to keep up with it. Seeing customers doing it, so hence why I'm doing a lot of overviews with them. You know, you've got other suppliers out there just doing the same and very similar sort of thing, that they're dropping releases that, you know, it is very fast, and how you keep up with all of this, you know, and what's available. So Fabric, if you're aware of Power BI, very much built in the same vein that, you know, we release things you know, monthly. At the moment there's a lot of things going out weekly with Fabric, just the pace that's going out there. So it's just understanding what that means and, you know, what's on the roadmap and how do we get, you know, people that cost model. Again, you know, it's a pro and a con, and just understanding patterns and practices. So that, you know, that's what I've been hearing customers talk about. So what is Fabric? So you know, there's one thing on here. There's actually, let me see if I can go previous. There's something data activated here, and there was something announced yesterday at Build. I've tried to update my slides, but although Build has dropped a shed load of new updates yesterday, so if you haven't seen Build, go and watch it. I've got a link to the book of news. It's actually, you know, really interesting to sort of go and do this. But essentially, Fabric is a SaaS service. So obviously, you know, again, I'm talking to the converted here. So you know IaaS, you know PaaS. SaaS is the next iteration of our analytical services. So if you've seen Synapse, which you'll see on there, which is our data warehousing sort of analytics thing, that was very much a PaaS one, and Data Factory was very PaaS. These are now our SaaS versions of those services. So, you know, I'm definitely not deprecating any of those Synapse or, you know, Data Factory. If you've got those already, you know, don't go running away. And Ian said, you know, this is the end of those ones. There's at least a blog post out there. I think there's at least a 10-year window, and I know that might be short for some people, but in the main, that's pretty a long-term thing that we said we'll carry on supporting them. Some of those ones aren't getting the love as much. Fabric is, getting a lot of the, the marketing and the, the sort of the new features. But what Fabric is doing is bringing together all the tools into one place. One of the slides that we, a lot of the marketing people talk about is all these different tools and how you sort of, rather than having to try and bring them all together, it's bringing all those tools under one UI. So you're not jumping around into different UIs to try and do all of this. So this is one UI, and I'll give you a bit of a heads up in the demo. What does that mean? But we've got Data Factory, which is the orchestration tool to bring data in. Data engineering is about this thing about bringing lake houses, so you'll understand data lakes along that side of things. You've got data warehousing, which is very much like signups and the very much old MPP sort of way of thinking. Data science in there, so you can go and build your models and train your models inside of it. Real-time analytics, which is your IoT, so streaming data in, so you can bring that in. Power BI, which is obviously visualization tool, and Data Activator is this tool which is alerting. Power BI didn't really have a great alerting tooling system before. Data Activator is now what I would call an enterprise version of Power Automate. It's very much about what's going on and telling you, and then if this, do that sort of scenario with Data Activator. It wouldn't be anywhere without a Copilot inside Fabric. So I'd say there isn't one Copilot inside Fabric. There's lots of experiences inside that for each of those different tools above. And then we've got the One Lake, which is the thing that brings everything together. So this is, and I don't know if this is the best way of marketing it, is the OneDrive for data. So it's a big storage container. So if you're already aware of ADLS Gen 2 storage containers, this is one massive one that Microsoft manage as part of the SaaS sort of thing. So rather than having to spin up lots of different ones, we give you a one lake for your organization, and I'll come into what that means and how you do that. You can break that down into folders, workspaces, capacities, and domains, and I'll try and show you a diagram of how that sort of pans out, but just to give you that idea. And then we've got Purview, which is integrated to some extent, but then also a separate application, which is our data governance tool. And Purview's a bit of a confusing one because Purview is two tools. It's hopefully getting better under one UI. It was the data governance, but it was also what I call the data loss protection side of things and security. They've mashed those two together. It's now one tool, but a lot of that sort of stuff is built in to Fabric to help you integrate with Purview to get a full understanding of your data estate. And then we've just announced this partner industry workloads, and I'll come into a bit of that later. So you can see there's one UI. So all of those experiences are now available inside the one UI. So if you've used Power BI before, you go into the Power BI portal, and then down in the bottom left, you see this switcher, which allows you then to select all the different experiences. So it's one UI, and depending on the experience that you select, you get a slightly different UI inside of that, as in what you're able to go and do. But again, these 7 sort of personas or experiences that you're looking to go and do in that. So you can either get your Power BI one or your data activator down here, but you click on that and then that shows you what you can do inside of that. Then we've built those on top with personas. So then, we try to work out, well, which persona within inside your organization would then actually sort of, align to the experiences that we've got. So your data engineers, I didn't pick the images for this, so this is a bog standard image from our marketing team. So I'm not saying that's how a data engineer looks, but it's obviously a little bit of there, all the way to our business analysts, and then obviously data stewards running along the bottom. So we've tried to say, well, look, these are the types of people that would be using Fabric, and then this is the type of tooling or the things they would be doing along that. So the business analysts would be more in Power BI, and obviously in Office 365 and how that integrates, from a data engineer who's actually ingesting the data and then making that available to either the data scientist or the data analyst to go and build either models or Power BI reports on top of that from there. And this is my little slide to try and break this down a little bit. So if you've seen Power BI, it was built on top of Office 365. So if you're the Office 365 admin, you would have then had the full control of your Power BI tenant. So that hasn't really changed. Fabric is an extension of that around it. And then under that, you get your one lake, and you can only get ever one lake for per Power BI tenant. And then under that, we can break out domains. So I'll show you what that means. And then you've got workspaces along the bottom, which you then can assign, what the artifacts for each of those previous toolings are. And along the side of this is very much capacities. So capacities are something that we've had with Power BI Premium, but they've become more sort of usable inside Fabric because they start at a smaller cost price and then they build up to the higher ones that were inside Power BI as well, and we can do that. So you can have two ways to purchase capacities. So the old model with Power BI Premium, if you've got Power BI Premium, which is the capacity model, you can go buy that through your Office portal, and that's like a P1 or a P2, and like a P1 is equal to a P2 is equal to 2P1, so everything doubles that. Within Fabric, we've gone with, rather than Ps, we've gone with Fs. So we've got F capacities and they start at F2 and they start a smaller thing. And I can do some price comparisons on a later slide just to give you a bit of info around that. But it does mean that it makes it more flexible in Fabric to start smaller, and then you can sort of work out which of the sort of things you want to use within those capacities for the different type of users. So hopefully that makes sense around that. So this is the licensing. So previously with Power BI, you could go and buy a pro user. So for example, if John built a report and wanted to share it with me, I would have a pro license as well, and he would have one for developing it. And then we would be able to share that with each other. So that's the per user licensing. The premium is the capacity. Embedding is this one where you don't get so much of the portal and you embed it in the ISV applications for websites and things like that. So you don't get so much of the portal experience. With Fabric, you've got a capacity. The Power BI Premium capacity, per user capacity doesn't sort of align up into this. It's not going away. It just doesn't have anything that sits in Fabric. So you can go and buy the Fabric capacities and they're pay as you go, or like the Power BI Premium, you can get reservations off the back of that to 1 year. And there's some changes coming. We have announced that the Power BI Premium capacities, if you've got them, will be deprecated over the I think they will stop being sold by the end of the year if you've got them already. But I think by the end of June, if you've not had one of those before, you wouldn't be able to buy any more. You'd have to just go and buy the Fabric capacities. There is a blog talking all about that. But if you did buy them as part of your enterprise agreement, you can keep them for the length of the enterprise agreement if you want to. And then just Azure signups, that's continuing, so there isn't much change there. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the licensing that is around. So Fabric and the F SKUs are very much under the Azure portal, whereas previously Power BI was very much under the Office portal, how you go and purchase that. So I would say there's two types of costs with Fabric. One of those is the actual monetary cost. So when you go and buy the capacities that you go and buy, but there's also something called the capacity cost, so the CUs. So all of those experiences, depending on the capacity you buy, sort of count down against the capacity that you're doing. So if you did some work in Power BI, that uses a little bit of CUs. If you did some of the data factory, that uses a bit of the CU. So you've almost got this fixed cost, and then you can work out within that capacity how many things you want to do it. And we've got some metric apps that help you go and sort of understand what's happening inside your thing. So you're not flying blind that, you will run out of capacity, but it helps you sort of, work out, well, how much have you used? Is Power BI, for example, using too much, or you've got an ETL process that's going around that. So I always, talk to customers. There's this two costings, ones that you actually go and buy the capacity, which is then fixed every month, unless you go do the pay go, and then you could do flex up and down, which is some customers like that because they may have an F2, they can stop and start it, and then they can bring it up and then flex up to what we call an F64, which is a lot bigger capacity. They can run that, stop it if they don't need it, do that. So there's very much around the APIs and be able to go sort of work out, well, do I need all of this capacity, or should I just have a reservation, which is obviously cheaper? So, for example, if the F2, which is the smallest fabric capacity, the retail price, because I'm not a seller from doing a lot of the side of it, I'll always quote retail prices in dollars, and then you speak to your account team to work out, what is the actual cost. So if you do a pay-as-you-go, which you can stop and start, is $400 a month, whereas a reservation is for 12 months is $300 a month. So you can see there's a price difference, but with the pay-go, you can obviously jump up to an F4 if you wanted to, and you can stop and start it with a bit more flexibility. The reserve capacities you can flex up, but then you pay the pay-go cost rather than the reservation around some of that. So hopefully that makes sense. The one lake, because that's the thing that's drawing everything. So I can see there's a couple of questions just about that. This billable per hour. So it's a fixed cost. So just trying to think. I think it's a 24-hour cost for that. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head exactly, but there's things in it that you can't do more than an hour. So the CUs only allow you to do so much within that one. Need to double check that. I'll have a look at the pricing thing, but I think it's a monthly cost. So the F2, the 400, is a monthly $400 cost, whereas the F64 is so more like the Power BI Premium, which is about $5,000 per month, sort of thing like that, if you want that. But that gives you some of the extra capacities, like with Power BI Premium, that all your consumers are included in that cost. So, for example, when I explained that one where me and John would have a pro license, with the premium capacities at the F64 level, you don't need pro licenses for all the people consuming your Power BI reports. So that means that you don't, the Power BI Pro license are about $10 a month. So you can sort of work out, well, how do you want to cost this and fix that into it. Can you replace your Power BI Premium with Fabric, or are they too dissimilar? So that's a good question. So at the high level, you can turn on Fabric in your Power BI Premium capacity, and then you do most of the things. So the Power BI Premium P1 is equal to the Fabric F64 capacity, so they're like for like. There are some things in the F64 capacity, and that because there is a little higher cost for the F64 capacity, if you look at the costings, that aren't available in the premium one. But in the main, pretty much everything's the same for a premium capacity and an F64 capacity. Like the Power BI Copilot or the Fabric Copilots are available in a premium capacity if you turn on Fabric, and also in the F64 capacity. So there's some other things that are just available in F64. Hopefully that makes sense. But in the main, you can transition from premium to Fabric. And also for signups, if you've got signups already and you wanted to make that jump, there are some migration paths. There are some things that don't match exactly, but for most customers, most of the things move across. And the same for Azure Data Factory. If you wanted to move from a PaaS version to the SaaS Fabric version, there are migration paths, and I would say wizards in inverted commas coming to help that make it easier for you going down the line. And some things, if you've already got that, unless there's a really big move, and I'll show you why, you probably won't need to jump to do into Fabric straight away if you've got signups or something like that. Like small print, and then cost. So the Fabric capacities you pay. So for the reservation, you pay for that in advance, or you're reserving that capacity. So a bit like a VM. If you're going to buy a VM for a month, you pay all of that, and that's the price. But you leave it on 24 hours. 24/7 you would run that if you do the reservation, the RIs. Whereas if you do the pay go, and you can stop and start it, you will then get obviously you'll get up to the 400. You won't pay any more than the 400, but obviously if you use CI/CD to sort of control when that's on and off. So for example, if it's only being used for doing data ingestion, and then you run it only for an hour and then turn it off, you'll only get charged for the time, the compute that you use within that hour. And there is some little things in there. So I'm trying to keep it high level, but in the main, you're only charged on the pay go for what you use, whereas the reservation, you're charged for that, but the highest you will ever pay is 400 because that's the maximum. Hopefully, D, that makes sense from your question on there. You know, unlike some of the other analytical services, the compute is fixed. You can't do any more. You can scale out, and there are some other things that are coming, but at the moment you're fixed with that capacity, and you will start to get throttled if you try and go above, or if you try and eat the internet on an F2, you're probably going to get scaled at some point to say, look, you can't ingest all of that. The other thing, you know, on this slide, the compute, which is those mostly the tools, is one cost. There is a separate cost for the storage. Now, that's charged at the same level as the ADLS Gen 2 storage containers. So that's 0.0218 dollars per month per gigabyte or something like that. The storage is obviously a separate charge. So the more you put on the storage in the one lake, you get a separate cost for that. But the compute, which is, you know, usually the thing that's more expensive, is obviously fixed around that. And obviously on this one lake, so this one lake is, again, you've got all these tools across the top, so the data warehousing, and they can all read off the one lake. The one thing to be sort of aware of, so if you used to say SQL Server, which had an engine inside it and you run it 24/7, obviously the top part is the compute, the bottom part is the SQL engine that stored your data. We've obviously separated those. Obviously, the one lake as well is storing Delta Parquet. So rather than storing it in a proprietary engine like SQL Server, although you could use APIs to get your data out if you wanted to, we're storing it on the one lake. And that means anything that can read Delta Parquet or Delta, like for example, Databricks or any other services that can read Delta, means it's open for them to go and read and write to as well. So as long as they've got the APIs and the right security, we're moving to this more open standard that, you know, it's your data. If you want to go and move it somewhere else, then you can do. Obviously, there will be egress charges and things like that, but it's an open format, so you don't have this thing you're stuck inside SQL Server and you can't migrate it outside SQL Server. It's very much an open standard now on the one lake, how this is stored in there. So hopefully that makes sense. So in this one, if I click it, I'm hoping this one. So these are more the domains. So for example, when you're on the one lake, I said it was like a OneDrive, you can set up domains as part of that. So for example, you can have a sales domain, they can have a number of workspaces, they can ingest their data using the tools above. And something we'll come on to later is something about these shortcutting. So for example, if sales import all their data and they create the single version of the truth, they can share that with marketing. And marketing then don't have to re-ingest all of that data. Marketing just then get a shortcut to that sales data. And again, they've got all the KPIs in there and they've got all the access because sales have given it to them, and they're not having to then build a whole process. So this collaboration and, you know, just importing data once becomes important for the one lake. And you'll see this coming later on, why that's important, or one of the key features around Fabric and the one lake. I'll just do a quick demo here. So this will try and talk you through. Apologies, very American demo. So this is hopefully a bit of an overview of what it is to try and, you know, bring to life what I've just been talking about.
Microsoft Fabric was developed to help everyone, from the data professionals to the business users, innovate faster with data. In this demo, we'll show you how Fabric can help anyone go from their lakehouse to insights embedded in Microsoft 365. To do this, I'm going to use the new Direct Lake mode in Power BI. I simply click on the new Power BI model button, select the tables I'm interested in, and I land in the Power BI web modeling experience. Without even leaving my browser, I can edit relationships, create DAX measures, and manage row-level security. With my data model created, I can click on the new report button and create a beautiful Power BI report directly from the lake without any ETL or data duplication. But instead of creating my own report, I'm going to ask Copilot in Power BI to help. I just described the report I want to build, including the specific insights I want to uncover, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and provide a report based on my needs. And just like that, Copilot created a new report that is fully interactive. Copilot even added slicers at the top, and also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. I can ask questions such as, which manager had the most revenue and top close percentage? And Copilot will respond by analyzing key influencers for variables in my data and add a new page that answers my question. Right away, I can see that Amelie Garner has the most revenue, but Peyton Davis has the top close percentage. With my report created, I can use Power BI's native integration with Microsoft 365 to infuse data where business users across my company already work every day. To start, I can select Analyze in Excel to open an Excel workbook, and the Power BI data automatically populates in Excel. I can then view and interact with them using pivot tables, charts, slicers, and other Excel features. I can even search for and find recommended Power BI semantic models directly from Excel and see the current Power BI reports using each model. I can also share my report directly with my coworkers in Microsoft Teams using the Chat in Teams button. But I want to make sure they always know how to find the report. To do this, I can simply add a new Power BI tab to the existing Contoso Revenue Teams channel and then add my report. Now, every member can easily access and review it whenever they need. They could also export this report to PowerPoint, which would automatically create a new presentation with a live, interactive Power BI report. Users can present this deck or copy the slide over to their existing deck and use it to drive clarity and improve storytelling in their meetings. After the meeting, the presenter can even share the report out by embedding it directly into the body of the email as a card, bringing data, insights, and visualizations directly to their attendees' inboxes. Starting with just simple data in your data lake, Microsoft Fabric helps you quickly model, visualize, and share your data so you can foster a data-rich culture across your organization.
Hopefully that's given everyone just a quick sneak peek of all of that. So obviously just show you some of the high bits of that. So again, going back to shortcuts, so you can see on this, you've got the one lake and you can then share data with inside the one lake. So you can see Customer 360 can share that data with finance. But one of the clever bits along the bottom, so if you've got existing sort of assets in Azure, so for example, you've got Synapse or even Databricks data and things like that, you can shortcut to that data. And I think yesterday in Build, we just announced shortcut to on-prems as well, but also multi-cloud. So we can go and get data from Amazon S3 and Google as well. So we can bring that data in via shortcuts. And there's a few more coming. So that means we're not actually importing the data. It's a bit like a shortcut on your desktop. So you're making almost a caching layer, virtualization layer. So the data still stays in Amazon, for example, and then you just link to that data, and then the one lake, and then so for example, Power BI will just read the data that it needs. So it caches that at a high level and only reads the data it needs to bring across. So again, that's trying to reduce the number of copies of data that you're bringing around. So again, this is quite an interesting way of virtualizing data inside the one lake. And again, having data across multi-cloud, then you can go and see that you can bring that together in one place, and the one lake is gluing that together. So shortcuts, that's one way of bringing data in. Obviously, if you can use Data Factory, or you can use the data engineering notebook. So we've got Spark notebooks. You could go and use Spark notebooks to bring data in as well. So those are two other ways you can do it. Another one is mirroring. If you've been in SQL Server or heard of something called Change Data Capture or CDC, this is sort of similar to this. So mirroring will go across, say, for example, Snowflake or Cosmos DB or SQL DB, Azure SQL DB, set up CDC. So we'll maintain the CDC for you. So we'll do the extract and load into the one lake, and we'll replicate the data in there, and then you can do the transform. And then it's obviously landed on the lake, and then that is a true copy of that data being in there. So it could be a line of business, and we're CDCing it in. We maintain all the changes and things like that for you, and then drop it on the one lake. They're also including, I think, I read, and I need to check this because the announcement yesterday said it was free to go and do the extract onto the lake. I think it's up to 1 terabyte depending on the capacity you do, and different capacities have different amounts of free inside of this. But this is again another way to bring data in. So this is a full copy, and then you can go and you do your transforms in your extract and transform, in your loading procedures. obviously Microsoft has got Azure Databricks, which is what I would call, sort of more our data engineering tooling, so very mature sort of way. So if you're already using that, we link quite closely with Databricks. So again, if you want more of the hands-on and setting up sort of the networking and have that ability to sort of control more of that layer rather than do something in Fabric where Microsoft do that side for you, Azure Databricks is a great way of doing that. So we've got a great partnership with Databricks. If you've got a mature solution already in Databricks, you can share data with Fabric, or Databricks can read and write to the OneLake. Also, we've got integration with, we just announced yesterday, with the Unity catalog, which is what Azure Databricks uses for controlling governance on their side. So there's a lot of integration with Databricks around this. Just to try and bring this all together, so you've got the mirroring on the left, so you can bring data in from that side, and along the bottom we've obviously got shortcuts. We also announced yesterday Amazon S3 compatibility as well, so that's on top of Amazon S3 buckets. You can do S3 compatibility as well on-premise sources, and also this big one with Apache Iceberg and Snowflake. So actually we can bring Snowflake data in. We can also mirror the Snowflake data in as well. So this is making the OneLake the one place to go and get all your data, and then allow people to go and sort of search from that. Obviously on the top layer, the compute engines there, you can either write your code in Spark or T-SQL. KQL is Custo query language, so that's very much for our real-time, very good for log data. So if anyone's seen some of the Custo data, or they've used that before, that's what that's built on. The Xbox runs on Custo, so very much using KQL to use our a lot about the telemetry inside of Xbox. And then analysis services is what Power BI, but they all read from the OneLake. So rather than reading and writing in their proprietary engines now, they all read and write to the OneLake in Delta Parquet. And this is all third party, so we've just announced a raft of people, SAP being able to use stuff on Fabric, also Salesforce, Oracle and things like that. So some big ones alongside that. But again, a lot of the other side, we've got AI Studio, which is again I think to go and build models. So although there's something inside of Fabric to build models, I would say if the true data scientists would probably use the AI Studio and the machine learning outside, but make those models available for Fabric to ingest via an API. But if you wanted to try something out quite easily, you could go and do that inside Fabric as well. But I would say some of my data science colleagues would say Data Studio is where they would go, and AI Studio would be where they would go and do things off the back of that. But also to the dynamics, so we can bring data from the Dataverse in, which is Synapse Link, which was previously under Synapse, but we've done that for Fabric, and also we can push data to Dataverse as well from Fabric OneLake. These are some of the happy paths. So we've got 4 happy paths. So one of those is the lake house, which is very much the medallion architecture. So I'll show you a diagram on what the medallion architecture means, but it's a bit like your layers. So you've got your extract, your transformed, and your presentation layer. They call very much in the medallion architecture, it's bronze, silver and gold, and it's about how you sort of bring your data in and do that. So you can either bring it in via shortcuts, then use pipelines, for example in Data Factory, to transform that data, make it available via Lakehouse, so that then the Power BI or a SQL endpoint can go and do this. There are the 4, and I'll show you a link to where you can go and get those. And this is sort of an end-to-end analytics sort of pattern. So you can see somewhere in the middle, we've got operational, on the left, you've got the operational systems. We ingest the data into what we would call the bronze layer, the raw, sort of extracted there. Then we do some creation in curated data in the silver layer using some of the Spark or some of the real-time analytics, and then obviously present it via the gold layer. So I'm an old school data warehouse person, very much similar terms. We've just changed the name, like everything, like we changed AAD to Untra, just to confuse it and make some marketing up for it and things like that. So IT like to come up with these new patterns and make everyone do it. But there's all of this. You can use governance across the top. So this is one pattern that we're doing. We've got integrations with Databricks, and where they would do different parts of the layers, and then Fabric would be used on certain different parts of the layers as well. So it's just trying to give you an idea of how this fits together. Some fundamental notes, there's a Fabric trial, so you can go, and if you've got Power BI, you can go and start a Fabric trial. We give you 60 days for free, and it's an F64, which I think is worth about $17,000 retail price. So you can go and try that down. You can start inside your tenant. I think you can do multiple trials as well. You can lock it down exactly who does the trials, but it's a good way to sort of test some of this. The Power BI admins and your sort of person is the person that can control all of this, and then you can go down to capacity admin. So there's a whole structure around security. We did do a bit of a misstep when we first announced this around one security, which is something that's coming, where you'll be able to control all the security for all the items in one place. Currently you have to go into each of the experiences and set the security on there, but the vision is some point in the future you'll be able to go into one place, go and see who's got access to all of this. So a lot of things at the moment, people are saying there isn't any security in Fabric. Well, there isn't one security, but there is security at different points and things like that. Fabric Copilot, I think that went GA yesterday, so I need to update my slide. You do need a P1 or an F64 paid capacity. The trial ones won't allow that, mainly because the GPUs that needed to run the learning language models behind are quite sought after in our data centers at the moment. So, you have to use a paid for capacity to go and see some of that one. It was creating the report for you. There's another one in the data experience to help you build your Spark code, a bit like a GitHub Copilot, and understand your code. We've also got another one that helps you build your data pipelines as well. So what would be data flows, or inside Data Factory, helping you sort of build those out. And there's some in the Power BI desktop as well. Conscious of time, I would say this is something that you should always do. So the governance and adoption, there used to be something called the Power BI adoption roadmap. I'll give John the slides afterwards, so I'll rip through these to make sure you've all got time for questions if there's any, but definitely you need to go and understand how you're going to adopt this, and then obviously bring some of these community of practice in, or a center of excellence in, to sort of make sure this works, and how people then are going to adopt it, make sure you've got an executive sponsor and things like that. This guy Matthew Roche, if you've met him or you've seen him, he's got purple hair. He's in our product group under the customer advisory team, or the CAT. Loves his swords. So if you ever go and look up Matthew on YouTube, he's very into his swords and things like that. Cool guy. Very good to watch and very engaging. But he's done a load of stuff around implementation planning as well, how you go and implement Fabric and Power BI, because really Fabric is part of Power BI. I'd say it's Power BI++ is the best way to go and talk about that. Got lots of stuff inside, if you want to go and set up auditing, capacity metrics, how you go and how people are using it internally. This was something that was lacking in Power BI. It's got better. And things like that. There's also CI/CD inside Fabric as well. So a lot of the Fabric artifacts are now available in Git, so you can check them into Git from that, and you can do deployment pipelines. That started with Power BI, which was severely lacking before Fabric on this, but we've done quite a lot to bring this up to an enterprise grade sort of way of deploying all of your through dev and test to production from that. What else are we doing? Some overviews around this, just how you set it up. There's a really cool thing called Semantic Link, or SemPy, which allows data scientists who are using Spark notebooks, and obviously your Power BI people, to sort of put all their business logic inside the semantic models. So previously people would be building their KPIs, their DAX queries, and the business logic all over the place. This helps people centralize this on their semantic models, so people can share that knowledge and the KPIs across that. One thing I'd call out. Anything else on there? Yeah, it's definitely a SaaS platform. So I know maybe talking to an infrastructure sort of user group, that might be interesting. So there's less around setting up infrastructure inside of the SaaS, but it's definitely, we work quite closely, that people have obviously got landing zones or existing infrastructure in other clouds or inside Azure. So you still need that understanding. But again, this is about trying to get people to collaborate more easily. But yeah, without just maybe some of the bottlenecks that they had before of, having data siloed in different areas. The one leg tries to bring that all together in one place. There's a roadmap. I'll talk through Some of this has changed, but a lot of it's generally available. Some of it's GA'd yesterday. A load of stuff is in preview at the moment, and do that. The Power BI roadmap is updated, a bit like, sorry, the Fabric roadmap, like the Power BI one. We try and give you 6 months view of what's coming from that. This is the happy path. If you go and I would say Bing it, but probably most people would be using another search engine of choice. If you go and look for happy paths with Microsoft Fabric, you'll usually come to this link, which gives you these tutorials all the way through. And these are a good way to, I would say, learn what Fabric is end to end. So go and do like a Lakehouse tutorial. It gives you all the information, all the data, and how you set this up. And then once you've done these and understood them, I would say then you can go and do the unhappy paths, is actually how you implement it inside your business and understand the things that maybe don't work 100%, or what you need to then maybe speak to the Microsoft account team about, well, how does this work, or speak to other professionals about how are you seeing this working. So that's quite good. Weekly releases, so there's lots up on the blog. I need to update my slides for the latest one, but yeah, we've got monthly releases, which I think the last one ran to 60 pages long. Build, obviously the book of news, I see John threw that in the thing there, a load of things on there. Again, I'll make these links available, but a load of announcements on there, new updated roadmap. Real-time analytics was a massive thing that we released yesterday. So a lot about bringing streaming data inside Fabric and making that available. So one of the keynotes, they had the McLaren team talking about how they stream all their telemetry in to Custo, into the real-time engine, and understanding, braking and things like that and everything. So it's very interesting, that it's being used for, very high sort of velocity data coming in, and some of the other bits. Yeah, so that was the real-time intelligence inside of Fabric. Learning, so there's a career blog post, how you go and learn on this. There's a DP 600 exam, you can go and register for it there. Cloud Skills Challenge for the Fabric engineer, so you can walk you all the through you need. There was a Las Vegas FabCon about 3 or 4 months ago. They've just announced one in Stockholm for the Europeans who couldn't make it across to Vegas. So that's in September. I'm hoping I can squeeze a ticket out somehow to get to it, because I couldn't get to Vegas. Some other things, if you've heard the Guy in a Cube, Patrick and Adam, they do a great YouTube channel on that. And there's another one, Synapse Expresso, which talks about that. A lot of our partners, Engine, Advancing Analytics, and Simpsons, and Coeo, Adatis, and things like that, are doing really great things around Fabric at the moment. So if you want to speak to them or speak to your Microsoft account team. Obviously, there's Purview. I'm just conscious of time that you can integrate with Purview, which is about compliance and everything like that. And then how, what features are inside Fabric. And then there's a whole thing if you go and buy a separate Purview, which would monitor just not Fabric, but also, your on-prem, your other clouds and things like that. So as I mentioned near the beginning, Purview's had a bit of a revamp. So if you've not had a look at that recently, worthwhile getting your account team or going searching out some YouTube videos on what's changed in the new Purview sort of thing. Definitely the data map, how you do that. There's obviously the risk compliance in there, if you're aware of what Purview is. And that was mine. So I tried to get through as much as I could in 45 minutes. So hopefully you're all still there. I haven't put you to sleep and that all made sense, but happy to take questions if you want to.
That was fantastic. Thanks, Ian. No, definitely food for thought. Lots to dig into in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I sound like I don't think I've spotted any other questions in the chat there, but anybody got anything they'd like to ask Ian? Either tap in the chat or come off mute quickly.
So there's definitely a lot of things, I think it's definitely for the security side of things, it's thinking about conditional access. A lot of the things, a lot of the questions we're asking is very different from maybe how you're setting up your traditional sort of perimeter access for maybe a PaaS platform or an IaaS sort of platform. It's very much around, conditional access with Entra and setting up those policies, when people log in, and Fabric is based around, Power BI. So there was a lot of that already. There are some things on the roadmap that, some people are looking for about private link for certain features within inside of Fabric, which are definitely on the roadmap and coming soon. So, again, a lot of people are trying it out, trying to understand what it is. But, there's a lot of features and, the product group are rolling these out as fast as they can, to sort of get them, and SaaS is a lot easier at doing that. that? I know that maybe make people nervous that a lot of change is happening. How do you know? Which is a little bit different from maybe from your PAS or your sort of IaaS systems where you would roll out the patching yourself. So yeah, there's a lot of backup. There's a lot of high availability there. At least you can shout at Microsoft when things go down a lot more and get things around that.
So you say if customers are currently using one element outside of the Fabric ecosystem, either the non-SaaS version, it's that transition. I heard you mention that there were certain migration paths for certain components. So I suppose, certainly from my perspective as an infra guy, not necessarily a data guy, is just understanding some of those. It's always on that verge of constantly learning things. So yeah, it's definitely, that's kind of broken the back for me personally. It was a really good presentation, that overview session. So I mean, on that note, there's no other questions. Echo what Damu was saying there. Brilliant presentation. Thanks again, Ian, for your time and jumping on.
I'll let you have the slides, and obviously build is still going on at the moment. There's definitely a lot of overviews. It is different, but very exciting. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, obviously being in the data space around that.
No, not at all. No, that'd be great. Yeah, if you don't want to let me have the slides, I can upload them and let others, because I know there were quite a few links in there as well that folks can click on and get some really good information. So, no, perfect. Thank you very much again. If everybody wants to show their appreciation, that'd be magic. Whilst and everybody don't go anywhere, we've got a quiz we can jump on now. So yeah, thanks again, Ian. Really appreciate that. Stick around now. Feel free to jump on the quiz with us. All spot prizes are open to everyone. So just a quick reminder, the two books that we got from Packet are Enterprise Grade Hybrid and Multicloud Strategies by Satya Ag and Multicloud Architecture and Governance. So two what would be probably really bedtime reading kind of books there, I'm sure. But look, if you're interested in those areas, we thought we'd try and align them. And apologies, Ian, we couldn't get a data one on there, because I did ask them to see if we can get one, but there we go. We'll get one next time, eh? So on that note, if everybody wants to join in the quiz, I'm going to click that button there. Get your mobile devices and either scan the QR code or go to that link there, that quizzer.co.uk, and tap in your code there of 4687. Everybody feel free to join in. What we'll do is we'll have the top four as prizes. So the first two will get the £25 Amazon vouchers, and then the second two will give you an ebook each, if that works. Just have to remember to capture everybody's names as they win. So we've got 15 folks still left in the chat there. So yeah, give it a few minutes for folks to start. D doing his usual Alt Lightning, very clever. You're gonna upset Matt, you know that, D, don't you? You're gonna upset it because he can't format that on Quizzer, or something's gonna go wrong at some point.
Work in security. At least it isn't
always trying to find a way around.
1 = 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Update table. So set everything to delete all. Drop table.
Don't stop. I don't know if he's got. I doubt you would have put web app firewall in the way, because it would have cost more money, right?
SQL injection. Has he got any SQL engine behind that? Is it gonna?
Let's just say no. Do you know, I don't know what he's using, actually, whether he's using Cosmos in this or not.
Yeah. I like they've got co-pilots on there. That's a good one. I like that name. That's a good one. Which co-pilot though? That's the question.
Co-pilots, yeah, you're gonna have to tell me who these folks are. I mean, we've got 13. We're probably up about right now. So Nick 1 and Nick 2. I'm assuming you know which one you each are, and that's not the same person, right? Where's Alan? I can't see Alan. Is Alan still on?
Yeah, I've had problems with this thing before, so I've gone on 2 different computers.
I get you.
It's happened more than once.
Go on, see if you can guess, John.
I can't see. Is that you at the bottom that I can't see?
No, I'm second from the top left, sorry.
Second. That's you, is it?
I'm co-pilots.
You're co-pilots and PCs.
Because we've got about 3 million of them now. So.
Exactly. You're just another one. Another co-pilot in the wall.
20 quid a go, so the bill's going to get astronomical per month.
Well, that's the way it goes.
Productivity. Think of the productivity.
Think of it, exactly. Are we all on? Anybody struggling? We're up to 13. I know Not necessarily everybody, but let me quick check the chat. Oh, there's somebody else on. Everybody okay? Nobody's message in the chat. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Look good. I think it's just you then. Obviously, only you minus. Is that you?
Yeah,
Just you,
I think that's it. Let's make a start then. So we've got 10 questions. Let's go for it. Here we go. Right, according to a recent email by the CEO, what's Microsoft's #1 priority? Is it AI, security, money, or entertainment?
This honest answers, John.
Say again.
These honest answers that we need to say.
Well, do you know what? These, I don't know how Matt, because
Why
Matt
is
has put this together.
marketing not on there?
There we go. Marketing. See, well, #1 priority is security, apparently. So I defer responsibility for the answers, okay? Now, Matt will watch us back at some stage. Matt put these, but these questions are all generated with OpenAI as it happens. So, and he does validate them. So, right, which Azure service gives you single control plane across multiple tenants? Is it Windmill, Sentinel, Lighthouse, or Gateway? Yeah, Matt normally does validate the answers. So, there we go. The correct answer is Lighthouse. Gives you that single control plane. So I knew the majority getting that one right there. Next up, which of the following is not an effect of an Azure policy? Is it deny, deploy if not exists, audit if not exists, or shall not pass? Which is not an effect. That'd be good if it was an effect, wouldn't it? There we go. Shall not pass. Correct. Majority got that one right.
You can see that I can see that the data person gets that wrong because they don't know anything about setting any policies up.
Well, this is it. This is it. You know, this is why this is a broad knowledge experience at the Welsh Azure user group, right? We get everybody learning a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
What was unusual about the Azure GPT-4 based deployment for the US intelligence agencies? Was it was disconnected from the internet? It was trained on the dark web. Was it fluent in 45 languages, or was it that it ran on solar energy? Was that it was disconnected from the internet?
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's the first I've heard of it. Like I say, I defer my knowledge of these questions. I'm reading them for the first time, so that's an interesting one.
I thought it was the language ones. I thought it was the languages.
You would have thought something like that, wouldn't you? But wow,
Mm.
okay, I have to read a bit more about that. How is it getting its knowledge? Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Just disconnected from the internet. Fair enough. Right, next up, what is the other name for Microsoft Fabric Lake? Is it Deep Lake, One Lake, Lakey Lake, or One Pool?
B would have been good.
I think, yeah, Boaty McBoatface and
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that, I think.
Yeah.
Of course,
And,
we've
yeah,
all
Dave
got
got
that
it
one
in.
right. One Lake. Good, good. Next up, in order to share Power BI content with other users, what sort of Fabric license is required? I know we talked a little bit about
I did mention this. Ooh.
Oh, Ultimate, Standard, E3, or Pro. Matt generally takes a punt as to what kind of things come up in these talks, and he's normally pretty good with his questions.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Pro is the answer. So well done to those 8 that got that one right. I don't know what number we're up to now, but how much is the new Wisconsin Azure data center campus costing Microsoft? 1.3 billion, 509 million, 3.3 billion, or $100 billion?
This is me not watching the build thing, I'm sure.
This,
Or
well,
something like
you know,
that.
that's, there we go, 3.3 billion apparently. Well, it's news. I didn't realize there was a new campus, so let alone how much it was going to cost. But there we are. Okay, next up. What's the name of the Azure API inventory solution that went GA this month? Is it API Center, API Management Catalog, API Index, or API Inventory Management? Kind of answer that you either know or you don't know, right?
Yeah.
API Center. There we go. Certainly learning on these questions. How many virtual networks are you allowed per subscription? There we go. One for your governance, folks. Is it 500, 1,000, 5,000, or 10,000? per subscription. Yeah, it's 1,000. Definitely splitting the pack tonight, aren't we? So this is going to be quite an interesting one. So which US city is hosting Microsoft Ignite this October? Is it Minneapolis, Orlando, Seattle, or is it in Chicago?
Should know this, but I don't.
I think I know this one. I think I know this one.
Yeah, I think I've picked one, but I think it's the wrong answer.
Yeah, I thought it was Chicago.
Yeah, I got the wrong one.
Or that, yeah, Florida has been the last few years before. It was Seattle last year, wasn't it? There we go. It'd be nice to get to go to that one, actually. Just so you know, I've not been to any major sessions. Or are we close to the end now? Is that it? Or have we got... There we go. And we got a winner. We got 4 winners, in fact. So congratulations, Simon, Dee, Alan, and Jim Bob. There we are. You're the top 4 winners. So £25 Amazon vouchers off to Simon and Dee. And the books, I will pick the books in an order. I don't think it really matters. I think they're both very similar books. I'll get one off to each of you then. So Alan and Jim Bob, do me a favour as usual. If you don't mind dropping your email either in the chat now, and Alan, I know I've got it, but just do it for me anyway, because it acts as a reminder, or hit me up on LinkedIn or something, just so I remember. Jim Bob, who is Jim Bob in the chat? Just remind me. We'll type it in there. Well, actually, I should ask who Simon is as well. Let me have a look. Is that Simon Barrett? Is that you? There we go. Thanks, Simon. D and Jim Bob. There we go. Thanks, James. I know D and Alan. Perfect. Right then. So before we hit the road, let's wrap this one up then. It goes without saying. A quick extra special thank you to Rhydian and Ian. You know, like I say every month, but it really is, really appreciated the folks that come on, give up their time to impart the knowledge. You know, special thanks to Rhydian, giving us that real world example of Creditsafe as well. I know sometimes it's tricky that you're not kind of divulging company information, but I think that's really, really well presented. So kudos, Rhydian, for that. And Ian, huge thanks, certainly for folks like me, the overview sessions are always a really good session to help, and hopefully everybody else on the call felt the same way. So it's really good insight into an Azure area, but slightly different world of data, which is certainly different from my perspective. So again, 2 brilliant speakers. Thank you both for coming on tonight. Really is appreciated. Brings me on to saying thank you to everybody for joining. So next session is scheduled in for the 19th. It's up on the meetup at the moment. I've just not announced it just yet. So if you want to go and RSVP for that one, that'd be great. If you want to go and give us a little bit of feedback, scan that QR code. It's really is appreciated. But for now, thanks everybody for giving up your Wednesday evening and coming to say hello. Congrats to the winners of the quiz. Until next month, we'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye for now.
Cheers.